Good day, everyone. My topic is a continuation of Miss Shiril Baay, which is my partner in this report. And we are assigned to discuss about the section 4, the continental philosophy, which are the existentialism, phenomenology, critical theory, hermeneutics, and postmodernism. And I was assigned to discuss the hermeneutics and postmodernism. And now, let us know if what is hermeneutics means. Hermeneutics. The word hermeneutics comes from the ancient Greek language. Hermeneuin means to utter, to explain, to translate, and was the first used by thinkers who discuss how divine messages or mental ideas are expressed in human language. The ancient Greek philosopher, which is Plato, used the word hermeneutics in dealing with poet as hermeneuts of the divine, and his student Aristotle wrote the first extant treatise on hermeneutics, in which he showed how spoken and written words were expressions of inner thoughts. It is also refers to the theory and practice of interpretation, where interpretation involves an understanding that can be justified. So, muna hermeneutics, we're going to explain or to interpret the word. It is an art of understanding and making oneself understood. It is also, in simple terms, hermeneutics means the interpretation of language, whether it is spoken or written. Generally, hermeneutics is an activity that interests Bible scholars, and the word is sometimes used in philosophy as well. And now, who is the founder of the philosophical hermeneutics? Philosophical hermeneutics refers to the detailed examination of human understanding that began with the German philosopher, which is Hans Georg Gadamer. What type of philosophy is hermeneutics? We have hermeneutics is also the name for the philosophical discipline concerned with analyzing the conditions for understanding. Hermeneutic thinkers argue that understanding is the interpretive act of integrating particular things such as words, signs, and events into a meaningful whole. We only really understand an object, word, or fact when it makes sense with our own life context and thus speaks to us meaningfully. Modern hermeneutics. What do we mean by modern hermeneutics? It is also has to ask how the digital revolution changes the conditions for understanding text. So, for example, the text encoding are already an interpretation and different search parameters. So, it represents text through a particular pre-selected focus. What are the main concerns of hermeneutics? So the main concern of hermeneutics, philosophically, hermeneutics therefore concerns the meaning of interpretation. So maudyo na siya. Its basic nature, scope, and validity, as well as its place within the implications for human existence, and it treats interpretation in the context of fundamental philosophical question about being and knowing, language and history, art and art. The primary need of hermeneutics is to determine and understand the meaning of biblical texts. So, mao na siya primary need sa hermeneutics. The purpose of hermeneutics is to bridge the gap between our minds and the minds of the biblical writers through a thorough knowledge of the original languages, ancient history, and the comparison of scripture to scripture. So now let us know what is modernism. Postmodernism, rather, sorry. What is postmodernism? It broadly refers to a socio-cultural and literary theory and a shift in perspective that has manifested in a variety of disciplines, including the social sciences, art, architecture, literature, fashion, communications, and technology. It can be associated with the power shifts and dehumanization of post-Second World War era on the onslaught of consumer capitalism. So postmodernism is a broad movement that developed in the mid to late 20th century across philosophy, the arts, architecture, and criticism, marking a departure from modernism. The term has been more generally applied to a historical era following modernity and the tendencies of this era. It also characterized by an attitude of skepticism, irony, or rejection toward grand narratives and ideologies of modernism, often denying or challenging the validity of science inquiry or declaiming the arbitrariness of aesthetics of artistic works or other artifacts of cultural production, or questioning various assumptions of Enlightenment rationality. Let us know what is the main focus of postmodernism. Postmodernism rejects concepts of rationality, objectivity, and universal truth. Instead, it emphasizes the diversity of human experience and multiplicity of perspectives. So, this is the main focus of postmodernism. Diversity of human experience, or what we are experiencing perspectives. Is postmodernism a philosophy? Now let us know. Postmodern philosophy is a philosophical movement that arose in the half of 20th century as a critical response to assumptions allegedly in the modernist philosophical ideas regarding culture, identity, and language that were developed during the 18th century Enlightenment. Now, who are the philosophers contributed most in postmodernism? We have Friedrich Nietzsche, Martin Heidegger, Jacques Derrida, Michael Foucault, and now let us know who is Friedrich Nietzsche. Friedrich Nietzsche was a German philosopher who contributed the notion of life affirmation to postmodernism and questioned even the most socially acceptable doctrines such as religion and morality. Nietzsche focused on the world around us rather than the afterlife. So that is Friedrich Nietzsche. So now let's go to Martin Heidegger. So Martin Heidegger is a German philosopher also. He is known for creating the concept of existentialist phenomenology. Existentialist phenomenology concludes that construct of our own truths from within as opportunity theories that advocate one universal truth. So, it's about the existence. Jacques Derrida is a French philosopher who was well known for his controversial approach to understanding the world, the deconstruction method, and was a major contributor to postmodernism. So itong uh, Jacques Derrida is a major contributor of postmodernism. Now let's go to deconstruction method, which was Jacques Derrida contributed also. So, deconstruction method is a process of criticizing literary texts, philosophical texts, and political theories. So, from the word deconstruct, he believed that universal rationality was not found in objective reality, but in the text. Simply deconstruction is simply a method of exploring, find additional shades of meaning. So you are deconstructing a message or the meaning of the message. Now let's go to Michael Foucault. Was a French philosopher who examined the theories of and relationship between truth and power. He established also the presence of episteme in philosophy. Epistemes are the knowledge of understanding that contribute to a society at a particular time in history. So that was the meaning of episteme, knowledge or understanding that contributed to a society. Now, Jean-Francois Lyotard is accredited with being the first to use the term in a philosophical context in his 1979 work, The Postmodern Condition. So, a report on knowledge. In it, he follows Wittgenstein's language games model and speed theory contrasting two different language games, that expert and that of the philosopher. So it also defined philosophical postmodernism in the postmodern condition writing, simplifying to the extreme, defined postmodern as incredulity towards meta-narratives. So now, how can postmodernism influence educators' approach to teaching? Postmodernist educators believe that there is no absolute or universal truth, arguing that truth changes with the advent of new events and discoveries. Embrace and encourage individual expressions, going further to encourage cross-cultural dialogue and as a necessary factor in the education process. It is also an important point raised by postmodernists that political factors and themes such as power and social inequality must be addressed if a teacher is to provide a holistic education. These themes are as relevant to science and mathematics as they are the social sciences, with a postmodernist view rejecting the idea that subjects should be rigidly compartmentalized. Postmodern educators focus on individual differences in learning rather than uniformity of thought, knowledge, practice, and curriculum. So they identify the response to students with different learning styles. Now, what is the importance of postmodernism in education? Regarding postmodernists, the aims of education are teaching critical production of knowledge. So, mauman dyan ay ato ang gina-aim. Development of individual and social identity creation. In modern education, teachers just lead students to a new things. And now that's all my report. So here are the references of my report. And that's all. Thank you. Thank you for your listening.